Hey, what's up, everybody? All right, today we're back with another lineup review. Week 13. Last week we did week 12, and it was a bad week for us. We didn't cash. We cashed, but we lost a lot. This week was a little bit of the same. We cashed, and we ended up losing just about $10, but it was a long week for me. I really didn't have a chance to look at lineups and research a lot, with my daughter's birthday going on and then her birthday party going on. So this was actually two last minute lineups that I threw in the Millie Maker. I did two lineups, one cashed, one didn't. And we're going to go over my thought process and see what I did and what I did wrong, what I did right and what I did wrong. And so, yeah, starting with this one, this is the one that cashed. I went with a Fitzpatrick Devontae Parker stack, which Fitzpatrick was only 1% owned. And the reason I went with that stack is we know Philly is kind of a pass funnel. They struggle against receivers, especially on the outside. So Devontae Parker was somebody I was looking at, and I figured they'd be trailing, which they actually won the game. So I put Fitzpatrick in, who usually does pretty well in fantasy. And he had 30 points, which is really nice. I think that was his best game of the year. Not sure. Yep, sure was. His best game of the year fantasy-wise. With that 30 point. He had 25 last week. And Devontae Parker had 37, which was his best game by far. So, yeah, continue to look at Philly as a team to target. Jammed in Christian McCaffrey, who had his second worst game of the year, following that one against Tampa in week 2, with 17 points. He did catch 7 passes, but only 58 yards, no touchdowns in this game, receiving or rushing. Only had 44 yards rushing on 14 attempts, which was crazy against the Washington team that I figured they would kind of blow out a little bit, but they ended up losing that game. So the game script, even though he's a game script proof running back, didn't work in his favor for the rushing attempts. Miles Sanders, kind of a chalky play this week as well. 30% owned against Miami. He put up 21, had a great game. The Eagles and Miami stacks were both pretty nice. We'll see some more Eagles in my other lineup. As you can see, that 21 was his second best outing of the year. He did have a touchdown receiving. DJ Chark was someone I was pretty much locked in on. That whole Jacksonville receiving core I thought would, do well. And I actually went with Chark and Conley, who both didn't do well. D.D. Westbrook did really well. He was actually in the other lineup, which we'll get to in a second. DJ Chark with 6.7 points with both quarterbacks, because Minshew came in after Foles performed horribly. And that was his worst game of the season, fantasy-wise. Only 2 catches on 5 targets for 47 yards. So the Tampa Bay defense has actually stepped up the past 2 weeks. And Chris Conley had a 9-point fantasy game, which, isn't necessarily bad for him, but obviously we were looking for more than that. He was only 4,500, but if he would have caught a touchdown and got that to like 15, 16, I would have been happy with that. We already went over Devontae Parker. Greg Olsen against the Redskins, tight ends against the Redskins I like. And I figured, Greg Olsen would have a good game. And his price was pretty decent. It's kind of high for his price all year. I think it's the highest he's been all year. But he only had 3 targets on 3 receptions. But as you can see, he did leave the game with a concussion in the third quarter. So he probably could have had a little bit better numbers. So that was unfortunate for us. An injury always sucks when it comes to fantasy. Sterling Shepard in the flex, 13% owned against Green Bay. His price point, I think he was $4,900, if I remember right. Yeah, $4,900 for Sterling Shepard is a really good price. He got 7 targets and got 3 catches for 40 yards and a touchdown. Had 13 points, which isn't bad. I figured he would do a little more. The game script went kind of how I thought it would go. New York was trailing a lot. I figured he would get a lot more catches. He only got 3. But, 13 points, not bad. Cleveland Browns defense, another pretty chalky defense at 2,600, I believe. Yeah, they only had 4 points against the Steelers after putting up 16 on them last time. So Duck Hodges came out firing, and they did throw a they did have an interception and only one sack. However, uh, so the Myles Garrett effect is taking its toll on that defense. Apparently, only 4 points, but we cashed with a total of 146. This lineup cashed for $30. It's a $20 entry, so this one won a total profit of 10. However, let's go to our second lineup, which didn't cash, and so we ended up losing $10 overall because it's another $20 entry. But this one I had a Chiefs stack. I had Mahomes, Watkins, Kelsey stack, and Sammy Watkins didn't even have a catch. I'm not sure how many targets he had. 3 targets, but no catches. Tyreek Hill had a good game. I was kind of hoping that hamstring. Well, I wasn't hoping, the worst for Tyreek. I like Tyreek a lot, but I thought my thought process was going to be that Tyreek Hill was going to be kind of gimpy and limited, so Sammy Watkins would have a better game, which obviously he didn't. Travis Kelsey had 5 catches for 90 yards, which isn't bad, but for his price, obviously being the top tight end on the slate at 7,200, we needed about 20 from him. I think when they played Oakland last time, obviously you could see he had 26, put up 100 yards and a touchdown. So kind of an off game for him. But they blew him out 40-9. Patrick Mahomes only threw one passing touchdown, did have a rushing touchdown, only 175 passing yards. So this Chiefs offense really didn't have to do too much. I know they ran the ball a lot. LaShawn McCoy got in, I think. One of the backups got in. I'm not sure which one because they split a lot. I forgot. But yeah, so Saquon Barkley was another play I was interested in. They're just not using him right. Saquon Barkley's had a rough year. Let me make this full. There we go. Saquon Barkley's had a rough year, man. He's I think fantasy wise, I don't think he's had too many 20-point games. He's had 3 20-point games and only 200-yard rushing games. So kind of a down year for him, but he's one of those guys that are game script proof. I did figure they were going to be behind. He still had 83 rushing yards. Green Bay is not good against the run, but he only got 3 receptions for 32 yards. I figured he would at least get 7 catches maybe. Hopefully find his way into the end zone, which obviously he didn't. Josh Jacobs, not really too involved in the passing game. Didn't get any receptions in this game. He has been getting more work, but as you can see, last week he only had 1 target. This week he didn't get any targets at all. So Jalen Richard probably got his. He did finish with 100 yards overall. The Chiefs struggle against the run. And at 6,900, I was hoping he could have 100 yards and maybe a couple touchdowns, which he never got into the end zone, unfortunately. And speaking of that Miami-Philly game earlier, we had Alshon Jeffrey. He put up 31. So if you had a stack with like Wentz Jeffrey and ran it back with Devontae or vice versa, you had a nice stack. Unfortunately, I had him in different lineups, but 16 targets. Crazy number right there against the Dolphins, who miraculously beat the Eagles 37-31. Thankfully, as a Cowboy fan, I really appreciated that, but kind of crazy to see that. 16 targets, 9 catches. He did have a 12-target, 10-catch game against Minnesota, but 137 yards. His first 100-yard game on the year. Got a touchdown, 31 points overall. At 5,100, he was a lock for me. Should have played him in both lineups. Unfortunately, I didn't. And as I said earlier before, D.D. Westbrook, shout out to the hometown, Cameron, Texas, right down the road from me. He had a great game. I think that was the second best game fantasy-wise of the year. He had 8 targets for 5 catches. 5 catches on 8 targets for 60 yards and a touchdown, which was his second touchdown of the year, so he was due. 19 points at 5K. Once again, I love this Jacksonville core against Tampa. I was hoping that, Tampa would continue to be the struggling defense they were, which obviously they weren't. And we already went over Travis Kelce. And this is where it got interesting. I plugged in Jay Ajayi. Obviously, I had Miles Sanders in the other lineup. I had Jay Ajayi in this one, just hoping that it's against Miami. He used to play for Miami for a while. Obviously, he only got 2 carries for 9 yards. Last week, he only got 6. But I figured that if Philly blew Miami out like I thought they would, I figured he would be the guy to get the workhorse load, probably get a couple goal line touchdowns that Miles Sanders would come out on. And it just didn't happen for me. He was 3K, minimum price. Yeah, and I wanted the savings so I could plug in the Chiefs stack with some good running backs. And so, again, I went with the Browns defense. So this lineup finished with 117 points. Did not cash, unfortunately. So, yeah, $40 total entry fee. Won back 30. So we lost a total of 10. Next week will hopefully be better for us. Back-to-back nonprofit weeks for me. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed this lineup review. Got a little more in-depth this time. But yeah, thank you for watching this video. If you haven't subscribed, please do. Drop a like, and we'll see you next time.